He doesn't bring you flowers. He doesn't make promises. He doesn't even try to impress you. But somehow, you became the only place where he feels like he can finally exhale. Not at home. Not with her. With you. You're not his wife. But you're the only one who sees the version of him that's quietly drowning. You hear it in the pauses between his words. In the way he talks about his life, like it belongs to someone else. In the way he lingers, just a little too long. In the comfort of your voice. You didn't ask for this. You didn't try to take anything. That wasn't yours. You just became the safe space he never had. And now, he keeps coming back. Not to build a future, but to feel something real. Even if it's only for a few stolen moments, he tells you things he won't say out loud to anyone else. Not to his wife, not to his friends. Only to you. Because you don't judge. You don't fix. You listen. And in a world where he's constantly expected to perform, to provide, to pretend, you offer him a rare relief. You let him just be. Carl Jung believed that what we seek in others is often a reflection of the parts of ourselves we've lost. And that's why he's drawn to you. Because around you, he remembers the man he used to be. Before duty drowned him. Before he forgot how to feel. He didn't become his escape. You became his mirror. And that's what makes this connection so powerful and so painful. You're not having an affair, but there's intimacy. You're not sleeping together, but there's depth. There's an emotional gravity that pulls you both in and keeps you suspended in a space where time doesn't exist, but feelings do. And then, without warning, it ends. He goes back to his wife, to his children, to the life that feels more like an obligation than a choice. You sit there, trying not to miss him, trying not to crave that look he gave you when he felt understood. But deep down, you know, you were never his priority. You were his peace. And it's a strange kind of heartbreak, being the one who gives so much without ever being claimed. You were the calm in his chaos, the silence that soothed his mind. But he won't fight for you, because his world is built on appearances, and you're not part of that world. You're the secret garden he visits when the noise becomes too loud. And here's the cruel part. He made you feel special, not through grand gestures, but through presence, through the way he leaned into your energy, through the way he confided in you, trusted you, saw you, and now you're left wondering, was it love, was it real, or were you just a temporary shelter in the storm of his own dissatisfaction? You gave him the safety he didn't know he needed, but now you're the one left exposed, open, vulnerable, alone. You scroll through your conversations, replaying the moments, the softness, the chemistry, and even though nothing physical happened, it feels like you've lost something sacred, something you'll never quite get back. And what makes it harder is that no one really understands. They say you're lucky nothing happened. They say you're overreacting, but they don't see what you felt when he looked at you. Like you were the only person who understood him. You didn't need a title, you just needed to matter. But when a man is married, no matter how deep the connection, you will always be the one waiting in the margins. Always hoping that this time, maybe he'll choose you. But he won't, because choosing you would mean destroying everything he's built. And most men don't choose the truth if it threatens their comfort. And so he retreats, back to the routine, back to the structure, back to the life that slowly suffocates him. And you try to rebuild your boundaries. You try to forget the warmth of his voice, the honesty in his eyes. You try to move on from something that never even had a name. But grief doesn't care about labels. Grief only knows what was felt, and what was lost. You were never supposed to be his therapist. You were never supposed to carry the emotional burden he refused to unpack at home. But love has a way of choosing us before we can choose back. And now you're left holding the weight of a man who was never truly yours, yet somehow still feels like he was. Maybe that's the deepest wound, not being used, not being chosen, but being seen, deeply, only to be abandoned quietly. You gave him a piece of your soul, and he gave you silence in return. But here's what you must remember. You were not weak for opening. You were not foolish for feeling. You were not wrong for loving him in the quiet way that only real love can exist. You were the safe place. And that is not a role for the faint of heart. That is a role for the strong, for the intuitive, for the women who carry oceans inside them and still manage to make others feel like home. But you cannot be his shelter if it means losing yourself in the process. You cannot be his peace if you're drowning in your own pain. And you cannot keep hoping for more from someone who only visits when it hurts. Because one day, you'll realize you were never the other woman. You were the real woman in a world full of distractions. You were the clarity in a life full of noise. You were the stillness, and in a heart full of confusion. You were the truth he wasn't ready to face. That's not a weakness, that's your power, and no matter how quietly he walks away, he will always remember where he felt whole. Even if he never said it out loud, you were the one place he didn't have to pretend. So here is where your healing begins. Not in waiting for him to choose you, not in decoding every message, but in asking yourself why a man who is unavailable found a home inside you. What part of you needed to be needed so badly that you accepted being sacred but secondary? Jung would call this a confrontation with your shadow, the part of you that equates depth with sacrifice, the part that confuses intimacy with rescue, the part that believes that if you love deeply enough, he will become brave enough. Individuation demands something different. It asks you to return your energy to yourself, to stop being the container for a man who refuses to hold his own soul, to stop translating his pauses as promise, to stop calling it fate when it is actually avoidance dressed as chemistry. Honor what was real without staying trapped in what is unfinished. You can accept the tenderness without living on the crumbs of it. You can bless the connection and still walk away from the role it placed you in, because the truth is simple: he did not choose you. But you can choose you now. Choose silence that protects your heart over conversations that keep you half alive. Choose boundaries that honor your worth over access that drains your spirit. Choose men who arrive whole instead of men who only arrive when they are breaking. One day, he may come back looking for the same softness, the same safety, the same sanctuary, and you will not be cruel. You will simply be complete. You will not hate him. You will have outgrown the need to be his refuge. You are not the secret he hides in his phone. You are the woman who finally decided that her soul is not a waiting room. Close the door gently, not to punish him, but to protect the part of you that finally woke up. If you're ready to stop attracting men who only find you when they're broken, and finally become the kind of woman who attracts peace, wholeness, and respect, start with the Jung Method. The link is pinned in the first comment. Now let's go deeper, because what you're really healing from isn't him. It's the role you stepped into without realizing it, the role of caretaker, of silent anchor, of emotional sanctuary for a man who never offered you the same, and you did it beautifully. You gave him safety, you gave him truth, you gave him a version of himself he had long forgotten, but you lost something in the process. You began dimming your needs to make space for his crises. You silenced your own confusion so he wouldn't feel guilty. You began translating his mixed signals as depth, and his absence as proof that you mattered enough to hurt. There's a name for that. It's called emotional dissonance. When the heart feels full but the soul feels starving. When your body aches for more but your mind tries to stay grateful for the little you're given. Jung spoke of the danger of projection, that we fall in love, not with the person but with the part of ourselves we see reflected in them. And when you're with someone unavailable, you start seeing your own emotional hunger mirrored back at you. It feels cosmic, but it's actually chemical. A pattern of hope and withdrawal of dopamine and disappointment that makes the bond feel addictive, even when it's quietly breaking. Youth is why you feel stuck, because your nervous system is still looking for closure from someone who never gave you clarity, because part of you still believes that if you're kind enough, patient enough, calm enough, he'll eventually choose you. But the real healing begins when you stop asking why he didn't choose you and start asking why you kept choosing him, why you stayed open to a man who only offered half of himself, why you kept letting your intuition be overridden by his confusion. You became the woman who gave him everything but a consequence. And that's what he kept coming back for: your softness, your depth, your lack of expectation. But love without reciprocity is self-abandonment, and love without boundaries is not love. It's a performance of hope. You deserve more than to be someone's temporary peace. You deserve to be someone's home, not their escape route. Takes strength to admit this, to grieve a connection that was powerful, but painful, to stop romanticizing the few moments he made you feel special, and start remembering all the moments he left you unsure, because love should never feel like a guessing game. It should never feel like you're asking for too much. When you ask for clarity, it should never make you question your own worth just because he couldn't meet you with the same emotional maturity. Maybe he did feel something for you, maybe he still does, but feelings are not commitment, and longing is not love. What matters is not what he feels, but what he does, and what he consistently chose was a life where you didn't fit. You are not hard to love. You were just in love with someone who wasn't ready to receive you fully, someone who used your energy as fuel but never offered you the same warmth in return. And that's not your failure. That's your awakening. When you start healing the part of you that equates intensity with intimacy, you stop chasing men who only show up when they're empty. You stop thinking that being the one who listens means you've earned the right to be loved. You stop being the woman who waits, and start becoming the woman who chooses you. Start choosing silence over confusion, distance over emotional chaos, peace over promises never kept you. Stop looking for him to come back because you realize he already had everything he needed to choose you. And he didn't. And if a man can see your soul and still walk away, it's not because you weren't enough. It's because he wasn't ready to meet himself in youth. That's the truth. Most women never say out loud that loving someone doesn't always mean staying available for them. Sometimes love is letting them go so you can finally return to yourself. Woman you were before he poured his pain into you, before you learned how to swallow your own feelings to protect his, before you mistook connection for commitment. You can reclaim her, the woman who knows her energy is sacred. The woman who no longer sees her empathy as a weakness. The woman who no longer confuses being his safe space with being his forever, because here's what he taught you without meaning to. He showed you how much you're capable of holding, how deeply you can love, how much presence and peace you can give. But now it's time to give that to someone who's not just surviving you, but choosing you. Someone who doesn't just visit your soul when they need comfort, but builds something with you because they're ready. Not broken, not lost, ready. You are not a therapy session. You are not a temporary bomb. You are not a placeholder until he figures his life out too. Are a woman of depth, of power, of presence, and it's time you started choosing men who reflect that back to you with consistency, not confusion. Let him miss you. Let him realize in silence what he could never say in words. Let him remember the way your presence made him feel whole, and let that memory be his to carry, not yours to fix. Because your healing doesn't require his closure. It only requires your choice to step back, to let go, to stop waiting, and to start rising. You were the safe place, but now it's time to become your own. And when you do, you won't attract men who only come to you when their world is falling apart. You'll attract those who've already done the work and who arrive ready to build something with you, not hide inside you. So breathe, release, forgive yourself for not seeing it sooner, and walk forward with your head held high, knowing that the role you played wasn't foolish, it was sacred. But now it's time to write a new story, one where you're not just the soft place he returns to, but the center of your own life, your own love, your own peace. Because being someone's emotional home is only beautiful when they're willing to live there with you, not just visit when the world gets heavy. You are not where he hides. You are where you begin. And someday, if he ever truly awakens, he may remember you not with guilt, but with reverence. Not as the woman he couldn't keep, but as the woman who showed him who he could have been if only he had the courage to become it. But by then, you won't be waiting, because you'll have already turned your pain into wisdom, your silence into strength, your loss into clarity. You'll no longer carry the burden of wondering why he didn't choose you, because you will have chosen yourself in every moment that he didn't, and that will be enough. You'll look back and see how far you've come, how you no longer accept half love, how you no longer mistake longing for loyalty, how you no longer betray yourself just to feel close to someone else. You'll no longer be the woman he runs to. You'll be the woman who walks away with grace, with power, and with a soul that no longer asks for permission to be honored, because love doesn't beg, it doesn't hide, and it never asks you to be invisible in someone else's life. You were always the light. He just wasn't ready to open his eyes.